Hi everyone. It is Wednesday. Let's see, where are we? April Fool's Day. Here we are. I thought we were going to be a little late because, of course, 2 minutes before one, there was a knock on the door. One thing we have learned through all this is we turn off the heater because the heater's right there, and we turn off our doorbell so that we don't get interrupted. But geez, someone's banging on the door. What's happening? So if we get interrupted during this, I apologize. What's happening is they're putting in a gas line across the street, and of course, they're digging in our yard. Did anybody bother to tell us this? No. Why would you ever do that? I went out and had a little chit chat with them and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing in our yard?" And they were like, "Oh, yeah, we're putting in a gas line for the people across the street." And said, "No, it would have been nice if you told us." And they said, "Oh, we don't do that." Okay, so what can I say? Anyway, hi, it's Q Farm Gray. It's Q Talk Live, and it is coming from Ohio with the sun peeking out today. It was overcast all morning, but it looks like it's going to be great. So maybe there will be a hike today after this. That would be great. Anyway, so Wednesday, we decided that today we would do demos and answer some questions that many of you have queried me and asked for some sort of demo or some to answer your questions about things that you've been wanting to know how to do, which is fine. And I will get to as many as I can. Let's talk about next week really quick too. Several of you have reached out to me yesterday asking where I was at 1 o'clock. Okay, scheduled for this week was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we're going to go ahead and do that next week too. So we're going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and ongoing. Just to keep everybody on top of it, I'm going to go ahead and post a schedule as far out as I can, just for anticipation, so you know what's happening and what you can look forward to. It'll be on the Q Talk page. Probably by this evening. Okay, so for later this week, so you can anticipate again on Friday, we have the Umbra ring, and the kits are no longer available, but the instruction sheet, if you want to follow along, is already available online. I've provided a link here in the details of this Q Talk. If you just look at the description, I've also provided a bunch of other links there for the tools that I'll be using today if you need to place an order or something like that, or for more information. But remember, you can always reach out to me, and I will answer your questions. So for next week, there is already a kit posted and available. It is limited, but it is there for the totally molecular pendant. So let's see if you guys can actually see that. So that's what we're going to be doing for next week. Okay. So here we are. Anyway, so a couple questions that had come in. First question is about gold-filled soldering. Oh, I lost my list. This is what happens. Gee, I thought I was so prepared today, and I made a whole list, and it's all gone away. Anyway, so it was about gold-filled soldering and how we do that. Okay, the thing is, when you're soldering, they say that the hardest soldering that you'll ever do is with silver. And then the easiest soldering that you'll do is with gold. But where does gold filled soldering fall in that? Well, I'm going to say it falls in between that because it's a little bit of fickle business. So let's break it down a little bit. What is gold filled material? Wire, sheet, what is it? Let's start with that, okay? So what it is it's usually a brass core with a layer of gold, either 10 karat or 14 karat, that has been bonded to that core, okay? So it's filled, get it? So let's go back even further. Let's talk about plating and vermeil. So when you talk about gold plating can be on anything. It can be on a base metal, a pot metal. It could be on copper, brass, whatever, but usually a really, really cheap metal. And that's plating. And basically, what they're doing is they're putting it into this machine, and through some electrodes and whatnot, it bonds to that metal. That's plating. Okay. The next one up is going to be vermeil. Vermeil is basically plating of usually a better gold of like 20, 22 karat gold on silver. Aha. So all of a sudden it's a little more expensive. Now there is an industry standard of how thick that has to be, and it's in microns. I don't know exactly what that was. I didn't even think that I was going to talk about it today, but I'm thinking this is important to you guys. So anyway, it is more or less gold plating, but they have to make it thicker. Okay. Although I think it was like 10 years ago when all the prices spiked. Well, all that plating got really thin, but no one really talked about it, although it did happen that way. Anyway, so that's vermeil. So that's gold on silver. Then you have gold filled, which is this layer of gold. It is not plating, it is a bonding process. It's not electroplate. It's a gold layer on a base metal of usually brass, okay? And then you have your karat golds, where it's 22 karat, 24 karat. It's a portion of gold and a portion of other metal that's been alloyed together. Anyway, so that's what gold filled is. So why does it become fickle? Okay, so with silver, you have basically a straightforward alloyed metal. With with filled, it is not alloyed, which means it hasn't been put into a crucible and brought all together. It's a layer and a layer that's bonded. So when you go to heat this, you have to be really careful not to overheat it, because if you overheat it, what happens is you will alloy that base metal to the gold, and by doing that, what's going to happen is you've created another metal. Oops. And then all of a sudden it looks sort of funky. So that's the key to gold filled soldering. Okay, so if you're going to use gold filled wire, you really want to entertain buying gold filled solder. You can use straight up gold solder, but gold filled solder has a lower melting temp, which will reduce your risk of overheating and alloying those two metals. Okay, so that's the key. That's it. And so you just want to heat gently, and you don't want to overheat the pieces at all. And don't worry also when you're doing this, when you're soldering gold filled, if it turns black. It's very typical. It'll come back. It almost always comes back. Now, if you have overheated it and you've pickled it and you've cleaned it, and then a day or so later you have all these blotches, you overheated and you've done some weird alloying along the way. So it takes some practice. It's a little costly to practice, but it is what it is. And like anything else, you just sort of have to work with it and practice with it. Do yourself a favor and get yourself some gold filled solder. Okay? It's available at Rio. We used to carry it, but no one wants to buy it, so we let it go. Anyway, okay, so that's gold filled soldering. Now, the next question was about bezel setting. How do you know that you have the right size bezel for your stone? Okay, so that's not that hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you down on my workbench here, and I'm going to move the camera. So give me just a second, and I'm going to move this down. Nice shot of my crotch. Sorry about that. Okay. There we go. Okay, so you have a cabochon, right? And I think you can see that. The thickness of it, you're going to need to figure out the thickness. Okay, so you can take out your caliper, or you can, for me it's easier just to take out my my divider, and I'm going to hold it and see. I'm going to hold the divider wide enough. I don't think you can see on that background. Let's try this one. Okay, so you can see the bottom of my divider is on the bottom of the stone, and you see that's too high, right? So then we're going to go like so. Let's see. And I'm just going to wind it down. Okay, so that's how I can figure out the width of my bezel wire. Now, if you notice, the width is just beyond the curve, because to keep the stone in, you're going to have to go past that curve, you see. But the more you go past that curve, the less of the stone you'll see. You just need to go about a millimeter past that curve. So once I have that, I'm going to take out my sheet metal and I'm going to score it just like so. Okay. You probably can't see this line. Let's see if you guys can see that tiny little bit of a line there. Okay, and that will give me the width of my bezel wire. Okay. Now another thing, again, what you can do is you can go ahead and use a caliper and measure it. But for me, this is easy. The easiest way to go about it. Of course, if you already have a pre-made bezel wire, then you might have to trim that bezel wire down, or sometimes it's too thin. That's why I like keeping sheet metal around. Now also, for me, I always use 26 gauge fine silver wire for my bezel. For the sake of for the purpose of demonstrating today, I'm just using copper. Okay. Just to show you guys how that goes. Now you can see now I'm going to put this on my stone, and you'll see, let's see, oops, let's see if we can see that angle. There we go. I'm just past my turn there. Okay, so I know this is going to be just fine. The next question along the lines of that was, how do you know, or how do you make a step bezel? Well, let's make one. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. Okay, this is just one of them. You can also buy it and cheat and call it good, but I like making my own. It's fine. So this is like one of my favorite tools that I have in my toolbox, is the divider. You'll come to love it too. I put a link up there. I mean, heck, for $8, why not? I use it quite a bit. I'm a little surprised for such a little tool. So I'm making a second bezel, and I'm going to flatten that out too. So making your own step bezel is it's not so easy, because you got to make sure all of your lines are straight. Okay, and then so what you'll do to make that step bezel is you'll just cut two pieces and you'll solder. Can you see that? One to the other. I don't think you guys can see that. Let me grab a piece of silver, then you'll see it better. Let's see, here's a piece of silver. Let's flatten that. And you'll want to use something thinner. Probably 28 gauge is good, but you don't want to go heavier, because it's going to be really hard to bend this. So what you'll do, you see that? You'll create two pieces of bezel wire, solder it down, flatten it nicely, and all of a sudden you have a step. Let's see if the camera will focus for me. Focus! Okay. So, and then so your stone is going to sit right on this ledge, and then the higher piece is going to fold over for your bezel. That's one way of doing it. Yet another way of doing this is to create two bezels. Okay, so the first one, let's just pretend we're going to make a bezel. Okay, so pretend that's a bezel, right? And the second one, well, depending on your stone, okay, if you have a stone, a gem cut stone, then this is really a great way to do it. So now I'm going to make another bezel, similar in shape, and then it goes on the inside of it, you see. So basically you have two bezels inside of one another, and the stone will sit on top of there, okay, or sit on top of the inside one. And of course you're going to make the one on the inside shorter, so that there's room for your bezel to come over, because if they're level, then they just sit right on top. So, Andy, I'm sorry I can't understand you. Okay. So that's how you do a step bezel. So two ways to do it: put a bezel inside of a bezel, or solder the bezels on top of each other and then bend it to shape. Okay. If you have any questions on that, reach out and and just send me some pictures or whatnot, and I'll see if I can assess what the problem is. Okay. So the next question was about riveting. How do you create a rivet where there is a space in between? So let's just say, for yucks and giggles, I had this pendant and I wanted to create this bail to go over it, right? And I want to attach this middle part with a rivet. But if you notice, there's this huge gap in between, and I don't want to pinch it down. I want it to be separated. But that's actually a pretty easy one. Okay, so first of all, what I did here was I pierced a hole on both sides with my 2-hole drawdown punch. I used the smaller of the holes because I'm going to use 16 gauge wire today for this rivet. So depending on the size of your wire will determine the size of the hole that you need, but you want that hole to be really snug to your wire. Okay, and I've already created a ball on one side of the wire. Okay, so here comes the next trick. Because I'm riveting, I want this wire to be really, really straight. So you can see it's not, I'm using 2 bench blocks to do that. These are anodized bench blocks, and so what's nice about them is they're really nice and light. But I'm putting the wire with the ball hanging out of the side, and I'm putting the wire in between 2 bench blocks, and I'm going to just turn this. Ooh, there we go. And it'll straighten out just like that. So yeah, the anodized aluminum bench blocks are really cool because they're really nice and light, easy to travel with. But see, look how nice and straight that is. Okay. So the next thing you'll need to do is, how do you create that gap in between and keep it in between? Because if we were just to put this in here and we rivet this, what's going to happen is this will come together. So you have to put in a support of some sort to keep it apart. So you could take a tube and put it in here, right? And that will keep it apart. Does that make sense? If you don't have tubes, you can use beads, but then you have to find beads with holes big enough for the wire. So typically you're going to have to go to some sort of a metal bead, because the metal beads have larger holes. So and then you have to figure out how big your gap is, and that's where your caliper comes in. So you got to measure your gap. If it's 8 millimeters, then you can do 2 4 millimeter beads, or if you want to do a bunch of 2 millimeter beads in there. It's a little cumbersome, but it works. But you know, one of the easiest things that you can do is to go ahead and use a tube, because tubes are easier to come by. So what if the tube is too long? Because usually tubes come in lengths, so you're going to have to cut it down to size. Okay, so again, here was what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure the inside like so, another use for your divider, and I'm going to grab a tube and I'm going to score it. Okay, it's like so, so I know where to go, and then I'm going to saw that. I'm going to change out the position a little bit here and show you how I'm going to saw that. Okay, aha. And I'm glad I'm wearing jeans today. So I'm using a tube cutting plier. I gave you a link for that in case you guys don't have one. I love this tool. And where I scored, I'm going to put in between this line here. And I'm going to actually have my glasses on today. Okay, you see, I put that there, and the score in between. I've been asked to show the ring. There's the ring. Oops. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, so now saw blade inside. You want this on the end of your workbench. You don't want to hold this suspended out here. So I'm going to put this on the workbench. It's going to make the camera vibrate. Sorry. I do have these brass tubes. Not, we'll add it on the website here once we get off. But I do have these brass tubes. Let's see, how much are they? They're $3, and I think there's 20 of them in there. Um, let's see. When it fights me, I don't fight it. I just sort of stroke. And I know it's a little counterintuitive here, but this is really cool. Just a little more. There it is. And it's gonna fall. Okay, there it is. Okay. So very simple how to cut the tube with a tube cutting plier and a saw. Okay, so now we're gonna come back. The saw blade I'm using is the standard 2/0. Okay, so you see that. And for this you can use any size, but I like to keep twos in the on my workbench. Okay, so now I'm going to put it back in. Oops, let's go back in the frame here. And we're going to put this in. It is not, it's not so easy to do, but it does work. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to put it to the other side. Do you see that? Okay. So there's the gap. Okay. And then on this side, I'm going to trim it with my favorite cutters. And I'm going to trim it about just 1 millimeter above the hole. And I'm using the ultra flush cutters. Okay, it's a little high. I'm going to trim a little bit more off. Okay. If you don't have these flush cutters and would like to order them, just let you know they are a special order. We have a few left, but anyway. So riveting hammer, and we're just going to tap directly down on it until it's blazed. And you want to try to do this without bending anything. Everything's really soft today. So the wire is going to splay out. I'm not doing a great job, but voila, there it is. Okay, I bent it. So bend it back. Let's see. Let's get those bent nose in here. Okay. So this is a bit tricky. It's not so straightforward, but yeah, I totally bent this wire. But in any case, that's how you would do it if you need that space in between. Now, I'm going to take this apart and go to the next question. Again, it's not very easy. It does take a hand. I'm using incredibly soft material. I annealed this copper earlier for whatever the crazy reason I came up with why I needed anneal. But anyway, so I'm going to take this out and go to the next question. I think I've answered the question there. So if that didn't make sense, send us a quick note and I'll come back to it. But anyway, so then next thing is, the next question was also about riveting. How do you create a ball rivet on both ends, on both sides? So if you wanted to ball both sides of this, what's the story? Well, frankly, I have been trying this for a long time and it's not as simple as it looks. It's a very, very elegant way of going about it, but it's not straightforward because the problem is in the torch every time. So when you have these torches, I'm going to move out. Okay. So when you're using these torches, they're huge. Okay. The flame is so big that you're melting everything around it. So the people who are doing this, and you see this all these really cool jewelry with the little balls on both sides. They're using a better torch. They're using a much better torch. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it with that better torch. Okay, so while we're at it, I need to put the camera back down. I have to turn it on. Okay, and because it's so noisy, I haven't turned it on yet. Okay, so here we have, since you guys have not been to my studio, if you see this black line over here, that's a gas line. It's a natural gas line that we had installed um, directly into the studio. And I don't know if I can pull this camera close enough. Let's see. Okay. So you see there's a line that comes out, that red line, and it goes down. Okay. And then I have down here, I think you can see a green line. I usually don't have this here. I usually have it somewhere else, but because of the situation we're doing for the live, I've had to move everything. But anyway, so this is a oxygen concentrator. That's what's making all the noise. And if typically people would use an oxygen tank. So with an oxygen tank and a gas can, you have to refill it. And I really didn't want to get into that situation. So now I have it on demand. I can have it whenever I want to. The oxygen concentrator is a little bit more expensive. I want to say they run like $500, $600. You can, if you look on Craigslist, you can find it for used, and those are perfectly acceptable. Anyway, so the gas line and the oxygen line is, say hi to my ducky shoes, slippers, coming all the way up here. Let's see, up to the table, and this is where we are. Okay. Okay. So this is what I've got going on here. Turn that on. Turn a little bit of gas on. Okay. So what's really nice about having a system like this is this teeny weeny little flame. Can you guys see that? Barely see that. Okay. Oops. Takes a little, it takes a minute for the concentrator to get working here. So I think you can already see why this is going to work as opposed to the big wire. An air acetylene torch would work for this. And this is a number 7 torch if you're wondering what size I'm using. There we are. Can you see that? I know it's so small, right? Actually, maybe if I put a black background on there. You see how tiny that is? Itty bitty. Again, it takes a minute for the oxygen concentrator to catch up. It's a little fickle. If you're doing this in your home, okay, you see how small that is? If you're doing this in your home, I did post a blog on how we did it here. We're really lucky because this county, they'll actually come and add pressure to the gas line to push it harder so that I can do something like this, which is for no cost, which is really crazy and somewhat unheard of apparently. I had talked about it in a group and everybody was like, you got this to happen. How? Anyway, sorry. Fine silver for this is going to be the easiest and best way to go. So I'm really sorry if you guys can't see this. I don't know how else to do it. Let's see if I can get closer without melting the camera. Okay. Okay, so I have I think this is a little Smith torch. So you see that? Boom. There it is. Very, very quickly. that happen. And then I'm going to just move this to the other side. Ooh, still hot. Okay. So I think, I'm almost positive this was a Little Smith torch is what I bought. I can't remember. Oh, it's a Gentech. See, the model is 10ST. S is in Sam, T is in Tom for those who are asking. Okay, so then what I'm doing is I'm trimming that on the other side. Okay. Okay. So now, again, I'm going to see if I can move it closer. You guys see? I can't point this torch to a different position, unfortunately, because I'm going to melt my camera. But we're going to come right in here and do the other side. And it should happen pretty quickly. And look at that. Boom. Done. See? So that's a ball rivet on both sides. And here is the crazy part about this. You can actually do this. I'm going to turn this off for a second. You can actually do this with a stone. And I meant to grab that stone. Give me a second. Let's see if I can... I'm going to grab a stone really quick and I'll show you how you can do it. I'm sure you guys have seen those chains where the stone is attached to the chain with a ball pin on both sides. I know, totally crazy, but it's real and it actually works. Okay, I've done it. So I had pulled some wire earlier. Watch this. Okay, so this, I'm going down to a much smaller wire. This is a piece of 20 gauge fine silver wire. I'm going to straighten this, try to straighten this wire out a little bit. There we go. Great. I'm going to make a quick ball. See how much quicker I can adjust this, unlike earlier I was struggling with it. So a very quick ball. I already have a ball. See how fast that went? That's what you get for a torch that's burning so much hotter. I'm going to put my bead in there. Okay, and then what you would do is, I wasn't going to show you guys this, but I was thinking, might as well since we're here, is you would string this into a chain, right? And you would make a ball on the other side of the chain. But check this out, because it's happening so quick, you don't have to worry. See, done. You don't have to worry about ruining that stone because it's happening so quickly. Just remember, be careful not to quench that stone. I just quenched the, I only quenched the wire. But look at that. And now, you know, we talk about this a lot. Now I have a stone with a ball on both sides. You know, we talk about never ever solder with a stone on it and that kind of stuff. Well, I'm not exactly soldering, I'm just making a ball. But if you have a torch like this, you can do this kind of stuff all day long. It's really cool. Um, it's on my list to do. I know it's one of those projects. Let me turn this off. Oh, hey, I just found my list. Okay. And let me turn off my gas real quick. Kathy, if you like this shirt, I think we have a few available on the website in turquoise. Okay, so gold fill soldering, riveting with a gap, riveting with a ball, bezel, how to measure it, and the step bezel. Okay, so then the next question was about water casting. Can I do a little water casting demo? Sure, let's do it. I'm going to take a second to move everything off again. And okay, so if you're going to be doing water casting, you do want to make sure you clear your area pretty well. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to grab my, so you're going to need a crucible of some sort. This is a whip and crucible. You're going to need some boric acid, not borax, but boric acid. It's a little bit different. I have some on D-Stash if you need some. A bowl of water. Make sure it's a steel bowl. By the way, sorry, Andy? That's going to be a special order on the whip and crucible. Okay, let us know and we'll get that in for you. Okay, oops, forgot my silver. Okay, so I have a bunch of silver scrap here. Okay, and the torch. Now, most of you guys have some sort of butane torch. I have tried it and I have tried it. It doesn't work. There's not enough there's just not enough heat. So I've gone to a butane torch. This you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's. Any of your hardware stores will have these disposable. And then one of the plumber's torches. Now there is a difference in these, so let's be clear about it, okay? This is a TS4000, all right? It's how the flame swirls. I learned this the hard way, okay? Not all of these are the same. Burns-O-Matic has probably 10, 15 different heads, and they just blow differently. So you need the one that swirls. Now, if you're interested, I actually have a couple of these on D-Stash too for $25. Just let us know because I'm not casting anymore. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is when you first get your crucible, you want to make sure that you season it. Okay, so this one is really well seasoned. How do you season it? You're going to heat it up, and I'm going to go ahead and do that here. I'm going to heat it up and then put some boric acid in there. Okay, just a little bit of that. Try not to cover the camera. And just put a little bit of boric acid in there. What this helps is it helps it from sticking to the crucible. Okay, make sure that your spout is where it's convenient to you, because notice I'm just turning like so. I'm not turning backwards to do this. Okay, so make sure it's convenient. Make sure you place all of your equipment in a place that's comfortable for you. I'm going to put some scrap metal in there. Now they say that you need, if you're doing sterling silver scrap, you need to add 20% or so fine silver grain, casting grain in there to make up for the solder, to make sure that you are at sterling. I personally think that number is way off, but okay. So notice I put just a little bit of boric acid in there. The other thing, the reason why you want boric acid is because it reduces the oxidation, and that's why you want to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to heat it. Can you guys see that? And I'm not going all the way in like this. I'm finding the sweet spot on the torch, and I can see it really quickly where the sweet spot is because it melts really quickly. If it's not melting, it's because you're torching in the wrong spot. Okay, so notice I'm heating everything. Okay, and I'm sort of shaking things around to make sure it moves together. I want all the pieces to come together. The nice thing about this torch too is there's a lock on it, so you don't have to hold it. And Okay, so see, it's starting to come together. You see the glob is starting to come together, and I like to shake it around a little bit so that I can make it into, it's sort of like playing with mercury, right? And as I'm shaking it around, there are still lumps in there. So I want to make sure that the lumps are no longer there and that I've got just one big puddle, that there's no more solids. And then as I'm heating, I'm going to heat the spout so it doesn't stick. So you notice I'm heating the metal and the spout at the same time, and little drops, just like so. Right into the bowl. Done. Yes, you need to condition a brand new whip. You want to heat it and make sure it's coated with boric acid. And check this out. Yeah, baby. I got some good ones today. And the thing is, this is a very organic process, so please don't expect consistent results. That's the problem when you're doing something organic. Okay, so in here, I'm going to try and pull all the pieces out for you so you can see that. Let's see. And I lost my towel along the way too. I think when I got up. So I have several of these torches available if you guys are wanting to do this. Okay, hold on. Get some water out of here. I lost my towel since I've been sitting here. What the heck? Okay, so sort of cool. Okay. I did not add any of the fine silver granules because I have so much fine silver in my mix that I don't even bother. So here you can see I have these cups. So the question is, can you do copper? You know, I haven't tried doing copper, but if you do copper, you're going to want to separate the crucibles. I think copper is going to take a lot of heat, okay? But you can see through the pouring that I did how different all the shapes are. And like this one, it's just a pancake, you see? And then this one, look at this nice cup. Look at that. I love this one. I had some good pieces today. I'm so happy. Um, anyway, so yeah, you know, if you're doing the project next week, next Friday, I'm doing totally molecular. You can absolutely use these pieces. You can see that. Okay, so there we go. And anyway, so you see all the little pieces. Now, if you don't like something like this one, you don't like how that came out, just put it back in, do it again. Okay, and you can keep going. Just understand that every time you do this, you're going to lose a little something. Okay, but it's a great way to get rid of your scrap material. Okay, I'm a little bummed I lost my towel. Oh, there it is. Hold on. Not even sure how it made it over there. Okay. Okay, so what questions do you guys have? What other questions do you guys have? So there was a couple questions that came in that I'm not going to be able to get to. I have to really think about it some more. It was about inlay. I don't think that's going to be a really easy demo. It's pretty long-winded. But I've been trying to formulate a class for inlay, so this might be a fun thing to do in the next few weeks. Let me figure it out. And about the other one was about filigree that I am skipping over for right now because I'm still fielding out what exactly to focus in on. But in any case, so if you're just tuning in and you didn't hear, next week we're going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This week we have one more session on Friday. The Umbra ring is going to be on Friday. So the schedule will be posted on QTalk this evening. I'm going to try to go out 2 or 3 weeks and get that together. I've been scrambling to pull together projects and whatnot for everyone. If you have any suggestions, please please go ahead and send me your suggestions because I'm running out of ideas, people. Anyway, I'm sorry, Andy, what was the question again, please? can I get an elongated cast instead of balls? Um, you can. You're going to want a bowl that's not so round because what happens is when the metal hits the side of the bowl, it has tendency to go round. So if you have like a longer bowl, you could probably pour that long. Another thing you can consider doing is consider pouring it on steel if you're trying to get something flat. You know, what's really fun about these organic water casting is that you can even do this with pine needles. Like if you do a bunch of pine needles and pour it into the pine needles, you get these long, elongated things. You can do it on lentils and get sort of like a meteorite. And you can do it on, what is that? What do they call that with the broom casting with the wicker from the broom to get those elongated striations. You know, you just want to be really creative and use organic material when you do it because it burns off. Okay. So this is, yeah, actually, somebody noticed I am actually wearing the earrings from Monday. Joanne, if you're watching, I'm sorry. Andy forgot to put this into your package. I was supposed to give those to my sister-in-law, but I'm wearing them now. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for noticing, whoever's noticing out there. What I'm wearing there. So on Monday, someone else asked me to demo today how to make different kinds of clasps. So instead of doing a demo on that, we're going to do a class on that on Monday. It's going to be again based on the minimal metal book. If you haven't gotten it, there's a link for if you want a copy of 16 gauge, 8 and 18 gauge wire, 5 millimeter and 6 mil or 5 millimeter and 8 millimeter jump ring is what the premise of this book is. I'll be using those same materials for Monday's class of making different clasps and things. I've also decided going forward so that we can keep a little consistency and you know what's going on is any classes that are based on the book, I'm going to mark it MM for minimal metal. Maybe you'll can keep track better and so you'll know how to anticipate those classes and what we are doing. And I am trying to step it up a little bit with a little bit more complex classes on Fridays, and then we'll figure out what we're doing on Wednesdays. But I think Wednesdays are going to be reserved for something fun like this, and I think next Wednesday it's going to be Wine with Me Wednesday. Also, you know what? Check in from time to time. I think I'm going to start doing some lives here and there as I'm working through the process for future projects, just to be in the studio and, pop in, say hi, and we'll see whether or not that goes. In the meantime, if you're looking for instruction sheets, don't forget they're on the Urban Beater website. Link is on the description. And hey, thanks for checking in. The sun's coming out. I think we're going to try to go out and enjoy it a little bit. So we will see you on Friday. Have a good one. Thanks for being here today, guys.